My name is John, but many people call me a daddy's son. I grew up in a town called Sealand, where I attended Sealand Secondary School before moving on to Sunrise University to study sociology. However, my journey to university was far from smooth. Before I got admission, my father always insisted that I study law. He dreamed of seeing me as a lawyer, but deep down, I knew it wasn't the path for me. I kept my thoughts to myself, not wanting to argue with him. When I eventually got into university and he discovered I wasn't studying law, he was furious. He told me he wouldn't support my education if I didn't follow his instructions. Determined to follow my own path, I packed my belongings and left for school without looking back. At university, I faced a harsh reality: I had no financial support. One day, while I sat alone, consumed by worry, my classmate Benjamin noticed and asked what was wrong. After hearing my story, he said, "Come with me, I'll introduce you to someone who can help." I followed him, desperate for a solution, and he introduced me to a professor who had a lucrative opportunity. The professor revealed it was a kidnapping business. At first, I was terrified and wanted to refuse, but I was warned that backing out wasn't an option. I'd be killed if I tried to leave. Thinking of my financial struggles, I reluctantly agreed. Our first target was the daughter of a senator, and after successfully collecting a ransom of 50 million naira, I received a share of 3 million. For the first time in my life, I felt rich and powerful. Over time, I gained fame and wealth, earning the nickname John Zoza on campus. I indulged in a flashy lifestyle, with parties, cars, and multiple girlfriends. But my recklessness caught up with me. After a string of successful kidnappings, we abducted the son of a chief advocate. Although we secured a 100 million naira ransom, the victim left behind a wristwatch, which was traced back to me. The police arrested me, and I spent 2 months in custody. My father refused to visit me, but my mother came to see me, heartbroken by the path I had taken. Eventually, my godfather bailed me out. When I returned home, my father begged me to change my ways. "Son, stop before it's too late," he warned. But I was arrogant and defiant. I told him, "It's my life, not yours. Leave me alone." Soon after graduating, I was introduced to an even more dangerous business: drug trafficking. I became an international drug trafficker, moving substances across countries. The money was unbelievable. I bought a mansion, luxury cars, and lived a high life. Then one day, I received a call that my father was critically ill. He was 86 years old, and I rushed to the hospital to see him. Lying on his deathbed, he gave me one last piece of advice. "Son, whatever you are doing that goes against God's will, stop it today. The end of such a path will only bring sorrow." I brushed off his words, assuring him he'd recovered. The next day, I boarded a plane to Brazil for another drug run. Mid-flight, I received a call: my father had died. The news shattered me, but I pushed it aside to focus on my business. Upon landing, I was arrested by authorities who had been tracking me. I spent 2 days in a Brazilian jail before facing trial, where I was sentenced to 30 years in prison for drug trafficking. 6 months into my sentence, I received another devastating blow. My fiancée, Blessing, had sold all my properties and disappeared. Alone and broken, I finally realized the depth of my mistakes. My father's words echoed in my mind: "The advice of the elderly may not seem true in the morning, but by night, it will come to pass." Now, sitting in prison, I understand the weight of his wisdom. My choices cost me everything: my freedom, my wealth, and my family. When I am eventually released, I will have to start my life from scratch. I share my story not for pity but as a lesson for others. The path of dishonesty and crime may seem rewarding, but it always ends in destruction. Make better choices. Listen to those who love you. And never forget that the easy road often leads to the hardest falls.